Honest community, before we dive into this episode, we've got a quick free favour to ask. If you enjoy the Honest Property podcast, please hit like, follow and subscribe wherever you're listening from. It helps us grow, reach more people and bring on guests that you want to hear from. Thanks for being a part of this. We appreciate you more than you know. On this podcast, we love to talk all things property and business. And today we have a special guest, Laura from Haus Property. And she specialises in HMOs and mentoring. And oh my gosh, her HMOs look absolutely on Instagram. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, we were drawn to your Instagram page because your whole aesthetic is very much our vibe. We love it.
Nice.
It's so beautiful, and you make
these kind of funky.
Yeah, just these really beautiful upmarket HMOs that are so needed right now, especially now that the market has boomed even more with shared accommodation, and how really the reality is not a lot of people can buy their own home. So there's more of a need for shared housing, and you make them look
stunning.
Like I would live there.
Thanks. Well, that's actually why what I use basically to think to myself, is this the right thing for this room, for this house? I always think to myself, would I want to live there? If I would want to live there too, then I'm on the right track, is the way that I look at that. So I'm glad that you like the look of them.
Yeah. So how did you get into HMO as a strategy? Why did you pick HMO?
So I originally started my investment research, if you like, when lockdown hit. And I was furloughed at the time, so I had loads of spare time. Me and my husband had talked about having some investments in the future, but we're always too busy with our corporate roles and never really got around to actually putting that into, putting the wheels in motion to get that started. So when I was furloughed and had the time to stop and actually think about everything, I started trying to figure out what would be the best way of doing things for me personally. And although I love the idea of HMOs, I love the idea of the higher cash flow and potentially being able to step away from my role later down the line, they just felt too scary for me at first. So I did one single let and got my teeth into that, and then was like, okay, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to get this done. So I worked with somebody and got their support on like a one-to-one basis. And she supported me through getting my first HMO right from the start to the finish of the whole project. And from then, I'm just hooked. That's my strategy now. That's all I do, basically.
That's so cool. I think that's really smart. You started small because it's really tempting to just jump into like a bigger, more complicated thing. Yeah. Like you started with something small, got the hang and a better idea of the process, and then went to HMOs. Do you self-manage?
I do, and always have done for the past couple of years. However, it's a big step for us as a company this year because me and my husband, Dan, have recruited a portfolio manager in December who starts working with us this month. So that will now be handed over to her to look after, so that we can kind of. I'm always really conscious that the reason I set House up and the reason that we started investing was always to create the freedom and the flexibility and not needing to be tied to one place or one role. Or I think that's something that I'm really mindful of. Sometimes an opportunity comes along that's really attractive potentially, but I'm always really mindful. Like, does this align with what I actually want, out of my business on a day-to-day, monthly basis? Is this going to give me the lifestyle that I want? And the self-management thing I really wanted to do because I wanted to understand it thoroughly. But I think going forward is something realistically that needs to be handed over so that I can free up more time to be doing other things, but also that can be a bit more flexible going forward. We've got lots of travel plans for this year. We want to be away as much as possible before Archie, my eldest, won't start school until not this September, but next September. So I feel like there's this fairly small window now of flexibility around schools and things, so I'm going to try and make the absolute most of him, and that's why we've brought in a portfolio manager to kind of relieve me of those day-to-day tasks so that I can be a little bit more flexible and focus on other things.
So just to clarify, a portfolio manager is somebody who's dedicated to your own portfolio, or how do they differ from a regular letting agent?
So I've always been really conscious that for me, the tenant management is part of the service. The service that they get from me is part of the brand. It's part of the bigger picture and what people say about me when I'm not there. And, creating these gorgeous rooms that people want to live in, I also want them to want to stay with me as a landlord. And I feel like that's really important. That's as much a part of it as, the attractive photos and that kind of thing, if not more. So I've always been really conscious of how I handle that side of the tenant management. And my fear is that if I just gave it to an agency with the best will in the world, and I know some brilliant agencies, but they would run things on their systems and their processes, and tenants would wait, maybe wait longer for a response and things like that maybe don't sit quite right with me and Haus as a brand. So I wanted really to bring somebody in that could work with me, do things the way that I like them to be done. Because I've got tenants that have been with me for 18 months, 2 years, and I know in the HMO environment, normally it tends to be a much shorter stay. People are a bit more fluid, they move more frequently, and some do, of course, depending on circumstances. But I think part of the reason why people live with me for so long in my houses is because they have a really good service from me as well. And I wanted to replicate that with somebody else, rather than just handing things over to an agency and kind of not really having any, I suppose, influence on how they are handled from that point on.
It's more of a bespoke service then. That you're having someone who is personalized to you and your brand. We've been there as well. We are very grateful for management, but we're also in a place now where we're looking for a bespoke service to be able to manage our portfolio. I think there's no disrespect at all to
love letting
it.
I think if you're able to create your own systems, and it's easier to have your own systems in place than ever before, because the softwares and everything that are available that were only exclusively available to letting agents before are now available to landlords. So you can figure out your own streamlined process. There's lots of different ways to manage your property now.
Exactly. And I think because I am a busy mum and I've got, we're still growing the portfolio and there's the tenant management and, all different parts of the business, that's had to be streamlined and process driven from the outset anyway. So I think that's why it almost feels like not easy to give it to somebody else, but everything's already there and set up. It's not like we have to start from scratch and think, oh gosh, how do I tell somebody else how to do this? It's already, the systems and processes are already in place. So that should make things easier to then transfer over. We'll see. Ask me in a month or so.
Is the rate quite a lot more for a portfolio manager as opposed to a letting agent?
I think it's a lot less, basically, because that time can be spent across the portfolio rather than taking a percentage of the income every month, whether something needs to be done. If one house in particular, one tenant in particular needs some work, needs some attention, some time, then that's fine. But we're not going to be paying for something where it doesn't need to be done. And I just think that feels better to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree fully. Yeah, we're in that space right now where we're going through this whole process too. So it'll be amazing to see where you go with that. We'd definitely be asked some more questions.
They're all room let. Well, I've got a mixture. So whilst I only do HMOs now, the portfolio is diversified slightly by having some that are for professionals, which are let room by room. So they're all on single ASTs, and some that are on a supported living long-term lease. So it's quite nice to have a mixture because it reduces the workload. Being a self-managing, it reduces the workload when I have supported living properties. That I've got 2 that are with the same charity as well. So that just gives me one point of contact for both of those properties. So that feels quite streamlined in some ways. So those are on longer leases, but then all my professional HMOs are all on room by room.
I think that's really smart because then you're not just relying on the room turnover. You're having having longer leases. It balances out the portfolio of cash flow.
Yeah, definitely. And it was, a thought through. It was a considered choice to go away and do that and to have a mixture. I really like the professional side of things. I really like some of the tenants I've got, so lovely and so much fun. And I do like having that interaction with them. But it's nice to be mindful of how much work I want to create for myself going forward, long term as well, with everything else that I need to balance, to have that where it does feel slightly more hands off. It's not completely hands off, but it does feel slightly easier to handle those, definitely.
The most streamlined. We really, really believe in systems and streamlining everything. And also, you've got young kids, and
Yeah.
you want to miss time out with your kids because you're just adding more work onto your plates as
Yeah.
well. Like that's also like a huge a driving factor for me. I don't want to add more work. I don't know if that's the same for you.
100%.
Yeah.
Life's tough enough with small babies. I don't want to make it harder.
Your oldest kid's the same age as mine, and there's only a small window of when they start school, and you don't have that time.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes it can, especially as an investor, sometimes it feels like you're constantly having to just keep growing and striving for like the next deal.
Yeah.
But also, it's also taking a look at what you already have in your portfolio and going, how can I give myself back more of my time to actually be with my young children? But
definitely,
you'll be able to plan to grow the portfolio in however many years. And I'm sure it'll be a lot, I guess, easier to take on more time when your kids are at school.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a real consideration all the time. I get approached by people asking if I will maybe source for them or project manage stuff that's in, the Manchester area, that kind of thing. But it doesn't align with how I want my time to be used. I want to be with my kiddies outside of my working days. I work around 3 days a week at the moment, and that feels like enough. I want to have more time with them whilst we can. Like you say, it's such a short window of time where they're young, so I want to make the most of that. I don't want to be tied down by other roles that are going to exchange my time for money, I suppose. I like the freedom and the flexibility of property, and probably the same as you guys. That's why I went into it in the first place.
I love that you kept sight of that, because we admittedly fell off track a little bit because ooh, this is exciting. This is going to make more money.
Yeah.
Let's do this. And then you end up stuck in something that wasn't your intention in the first place.
Yeah.
But I guess having young children
forces you to reevaluate.
Yeah.
So we've been very open and honest of when we started in our 20s, we had all the energy, we had all the time. Yeah. And then I decided to have a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, it can't continue this way.
Well, you've got no energy and no time.
The way that we work has to change. And systems are even more important and structured when you have children. Otherwise, you will end up
around like a headless chicken forever.
Yeah.
And I think this is talked about enough as well, like especially if you're a mother. I know that men, the fathers, take on a lot of the role now that used to be just women, but there's still a bit of a default of mummy at the beginning of their life a lot of the time. And we personally believe that's why investing for women really, really works really well if you want to be a mum.
Oh gosh, definitely. And that was, so at the time that I got my first single let, and I was looking for my first HMO, I was also pregnant then with Archie. So it was a considered thing, because I knew that the role I'd done previously, I had to travel so much for, and I knew that just wouldn't work once baby was here. I didn't actually think I'd be able to leave the role as quickly as I ended up doing. I thought I'd have to stay on for longer and return for a bit, but it was more of a longer term plan. But yeah, absolutely. I think, you have these little people that all of a sudden they rely on you, and it just changes the dynamic of everything. I think what's interesting for us though, so I started Haus on my own, and my husband Dan, he had a role that kept him busy constantly. I mean, like, it was a really high pressured job, long hours, tons of travel. And I'd always said, one day I'd like to be able to have the opportunity where if he wanted to leave and come and work with me, that he could. And then the right opportunity came along, and now we work together. So we have been working together for a while. So before our youngest, Isabel, arrived, we were both already working together and starting to grow the business together and kind of see where his strengths lay and mine, and kind of figuring out what was best working going forward, the two of us. So now, actually, I feel like we share everything. We share all the childcare, all the business stuff. Like, I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't work for some people. We spend a lot of time together, but we have a really nice balance, and we both get to do both sides of it now, which I know I'm so lucky. But it's really great to feel like that was a goal when I very first started out, and then now it's realised and we get to do this and, you know, live this life together. It's amazing.
That's so cool. How do you find working with each other? Like, realistically, what's it like working with your partner?
It's great now. I think first we were both like, oh, how does this work? Who does what? Where do we fit best with everything? But we've totally found our rhythm now. So we know what Dan's best at. I know what I'm best at. And that's where the roles are quite separate now. Of course, we'll overlap occasionally on certain things. But until we found that, it was a bit tricky, I'll be honest. But now it works so well. It's great. And as well, you know, there's a real feeling of we're both always moving towards the same goal.
Like,
Yeah.
Objectives, don't you? Like, it's all for your family, also that you can just be together and spend time with each other and the children.
Yeah, definitely. And now it works so well. It's great. I know that it wouldn't be for everyone. If you'd have asked me previously, would I have thought it'd be for me? I might not have thought so, but it worked out.
Oh, that's so nice. It's great that it worked out that way.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. Otherwise, I'd have been sending him back to work.
You did mentoring yourself, and now you're mentoring as a service. How does that tie in with the time, like with being an investor, property investor, and having HMOs at the same time? Does it complement each other?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, the mentoring side of things, when I first started out, was so important for me. I just felt like I needed someone that had walked that path before me, that could help take some of the risk out of investing initially. I think there's that fear for me was, you know, what if this all goes wrong? I'm sure it's what stops a lot of people getting started in the first place, isn't it? And I just really wanted that reassurance and that support, and to a degree, the accountability that came with having someone, you know, that I was working with on a one-to-one basis as well, because I was so busy at the time, as in, you know, with my full-time role. I was pregnant. I was also project managing a kitchen extension at home. So it was just all going on at the same time. And I knew that if I wanted to get it to work, a part of me would need some form of accountability at the very beginning. So it worked really well for me. I think I just got so much value from it. But in my previous role as well, I did a business coaching role. So I did that for other people within their businesses. I used to work in the hair care industry. So I understand the value of it from both sides. So I was, you know, more than happy to go and find someone that I thought would be suitable to work with them and get their support to get me going. And then I'd considered potentially offering that as a service then from myself to other people last year. And I was a bit on the fence whether the timing was right and one thing and another. And then it kind of organically happened because somebody that's a friend of a friend that I know had got in touch and said, I really need a mentor, but I'm wondering if you would want to do it for me. So it was kind of, you know, it was just, like an organic progression. We worked together for a bit, just us. And then I was like, this feels great. This is definitely something I could do. You know, you get those wins from other people as well then, because so rewarding. I think my background was sales originally. And I think, you know, you get that kick when you get a sale. And when that stops and you're in property, and we all know it is a long game with property, isn't it? Everything feels like it takes ages. So you can kind of, now I feels lovely that I can kind of celebrate other people's wins too, you know, when I'm supporting them. But it's been a nice addition to the business. It's been something that feels great. But also going back to what I was saying before, it's definitely still aligning with everything that I want. I can do this from anywhere, you know, at any time. It still gives me flexibility and freedom. I control the number of people that I work with, say, you know, I don't have to go crazy with it. It just has to be, for me, something that feels right, where other people are getting great value from me and support and accountability and everything that I wanted originally. And it's a good arm from, you know, another arm to the business that I feel like really complements the property side really well.
Yeah, I know, I agree, because we got a mentor as well back a long time ago, and that was the most valuable thing that we ever had.
It's like we did the course, and the books and the information and the education, but mentor helps you have the confidence.
Yeah,
that was the thing. and the accountability. And if you have second guesses or weren't sure of something, they're there to help you make sure your numbers are right, or make sure that you're asking the right, or consider questions you might not have considered to ask during viewings. It's just,
mentorship, like personalized mentorship is just so, I think have your foundational knowledge first. Otherwise, I think then if you go into mentorship, then you can get real value from it. And also having accountability groups as well can really help to kind of keep the urgency going. But being a mentor to be able to bounce off ideas, especially if you're investing by yourself and you don't have, we're partners, but like if you don't have a partner, having a mentor, if you are unsure of certain things and what to do, but you can't ask anyone else, and like you're paying a mentor to help you, to guide you, to help you to make less problematic choices.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was all about that risk level. I think that's what I needed personally, was to reduce some of the risk and to be able to, speak to someone and say, does this work? And is there something I've not thought of or I don't know anything about yet? And sometimes there would be, potential. So I do, because I have supported living properties as well, I think some of the people that are coming to me, because supported living seems to be so popular at the moment, I do get people coming to me specifically for the supported living strategy. And I think there's all sorts of things that people don't expect to be potentially problematic, like, the lending on them, and especially people are first-time landlords, that kind of thing, knowing the right brokers, how to value those properties, if it's not just a bricks and mortar valuation at the, at the back end. I think there's so many things that you almost don't know how much you don't know at first. So when people come and start to work with me, I think it's a case of that, making sure that we understand all the potential issues, I suppose, as well. Don't want to frighten anybody off, but I think it's important that we look at everything and be really clear.
And what the exit strategy is as well, if you are having a supported living lender as well, like it's knowing all of that stuff too, which I think some people wouldn't know, or the difference between the different lenders and like the types of mortgages that you can have. People don't understand that. And if you've got someone who can completely direct you in the right direction of what type of tenant you want to be able to house out, or like how you can change in the future, then I think you need that guidance from a mentor.
It fast tracks you.
Fast tracks you. And like, you can't pretend that you do get what you pay for. Sometimes we always say like free doesn't always mean good. But when you actually pay for something, you value it a lot more, and you're going to put more effort into it.
Yeah, like there was a pressure for us. We paid for 2 mentors, and we were under pressure to make that money back fast.
Yeah,
and we did it in the year. So
amazing. Yeah, it's definitely, there is so much value to be had in that. I think it's working with the right person. I've had people coming to me, for like that want to set up a service accommodation business and that kind of thing, and I'm like, thanks so much for speaking to me, but I just don't think, like, I don't have any experience. I'm not going to take you money for something I don't understand. So I'm quite keen to work with people where we're really properly aligned. I can add lots of value, and that it's a good, strong working relationship then, I think.
Yeah. I think you're really good at like identifying when to say no, and that's a real skill.
Yeah, that's a real skill, especially when people are asking you, because I think sometimes people who don't know, have never been in property before, can just go, oh, well, you are in property, you must know everything.
Yeah.
Everyone knows everything. There's so many strategies. Exactly. Some learn how to, they don't have ownership of property, but they can control. So that's completely different as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's good to be as specific as possible. And I'm always really honest and open with people. If I don't think we would be the best fit, then I think I'd rather say that than be 3 months down the line thinking, I don't feel like this is going so well. I'd rather be honest from the outset. But it's been really nice. I've got to work with some really lovely people and get some exciting results working with them as well. So it's been great fun and something different to add into the weekly mix of work that I'm doing. It feels really nice. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, and I think like with what you're doing, creating another revenue stream of income by still involved in property, and you're actually helping other people. Because back when we started, I think like the idea was, oh, you just live off all of these like portfolio properties and that you just live off that passive income, and that's like the reality. But actually now it takes time and the reality, we started a separate business, but that was nothing to do with property. We just needed to get a job, so we started another company. But but now the property industry has changed a lot. It takes a lot more properties or higher cash flowing properties, but you do need to have another form of income coming in, and that's why whilst you're building, not just I just think it's not the same as it was before. Interest rates are higher, and so
interest rates alone can affect that hugely, can't they? And then I know there's so many potential issues with the renters' rights bill coming in. That can change everything overnight. So anything could change. We don't know. So for me, having definitely, another income stream is great. But also that's partly why I like the diversity to a degree of the professional and the supported living HMOs. To have a bit of diversity anyway just feels comfortable to me.
Yeah. I think as well, from your perspective as a mentor, teaching other people and guiding other people means you are constantly on top of all, like you have to be on top of all of the information or the legislation, because you have to share that information with, which is massive.
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely gives me, actually, it's a really good point. It does give me an extra push to make sure that rather than understanding something, maybe just at top level information, that I will then spend the time doing, a bit more research, reaching out to people that, have more knowledge than me on a certain area maybe, and having a conversation with them. I also do quite a lot of networking. I really enjoy that. But I think it's great, to meet other people and learn from people all the time. I think it's quite a nice way of doing it. And I also like the networking where you get to go and either have a cup of coffee or a meal with people as well. If it can involve food and drink and stuff, then I'm there 100%.
Like company outside, just you and your husband, or like just us two. We went for a Christmas do, and it was like just
same. It was me and Dan went for some cocktails and some nice food, and I was like, this is just us two.
It's so nice, but it's also nice to just connect with other people, because they might be approaching it in a totally different way that you could really
have more and that you think it can be so easy to be stuck in your own echo chamber, like in strategy, and sometimes you can learn from other people's projects, even if it's not
always
anything to do with, say, HMO, but you might something
that finish on a bathroom. That is a way to do it. Like,
definitely. I'm all about that. I really enjoy that. I'm quite a sociable, quite a sociable person. So for me, it feels like, well, since I'm a mum, it feels the closest I get to like going out now, go to a networking event for the day.
Going back to mentoring, that's also something that you can do from anywhere. Do you do it mostly remotely, or do you go in person?
Yeah, everything's remote. So it's all done on video calls, which again, it was purposely set up that way so that I did have the flexibility and the freedom to be elsewhere if I wanted to. So that's, something that's been key to it really for me. We, in February, are going to go to Bali for a while. Our family, I know. So and it's something that, I'm going to have to consider the time difference and make sure that all of my mentees are accommodated for, but it's still something that I can choose to do from wherever I want to be. I can take my whole little family and go on an adventure and still keep this side of things ticking over. So
also it's really well for people, like when we had our mentorship, we were in person, but going forward now, I think I would choose to have accountability mentorship over Zoom. You said if you will attract the right people who want mentorship, who also want this location freedom, or want to be able to fit it into their time better without having to travel. That's just the reality of most modern workers.
Absolutely.
people are used to it since COVID. They want to be able to just open their laptop and go, I can have my session. There's no in-between travel time.
If anything,
Exactly.
it's inspiration, because you're literally going to be on the other side of the world on a beach.
Yeah.
Let me help you.
Yeah, I know, right? No, I don't want to be like rubbing it in. Like, I'm here in Bali, you know.
You have to change the background to like a grey, rainy background.
Grey office or something.
I am in the UK, honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's nice, isn't it? You know, it's come full circle. I was wanting to be able to have the flexibility and the freedom. A new property could give it to me. I found myself a mentor. Excuse me, I worked really hard, did what I needed to do, and then now I've got the flexibility and the freedom, but at the same time I can help other people.
Yeah, I love that. You know, your stories, your circle, your stages are quite similar to what happened for us as well. And it doesn't need to be that complicated, does it really? It's like, just crack on, and like keep, what you've done is just, you're way better at saying no than we were.
Right.
But staying focused and self-management is a new undertaking for us.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So what role does your husband play? What's his like?
So he's definitely more behind the scenes. You'll barely see his face on Instagram or anything like that.
That is so normal for like the partnership businesses where the female ends up being the face.
The face, yeah, definitely. So his background means that he's got much better skills than me in a lot of the organisational side of things, as in the systems and the processes. So he looks after all of our bookkeeping, all of the accounts. He's the money man, basically. He deals with the actual ASTs. We use Coho. I don't know if you guys are using that, maybe. So he does everything that we need to do on Coho. And all the back of house stuff, organisational wise. And I tend to do more tenant facing stuff. I deal with all tenants. I deal obviously now with mentees and any responses to any questions or queries that they may have. Dan runs mostly the build site. We've got one live at the moment, so he's mostly dealing with that kind of thing, and I'll go less frequently, but it's something that we both kind of work on. So that's where everything fits in. I think if there's a face needed to be on something, marketing, social media, tenants, check-ins, check-outs, all those kinds of things, that's me. Anything where you don't need to see someone, that's normally done.
That's sales communication. That's your brand.
Yeah,
exactly. It makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. But it works well. You know, imagine we both had the same set of, interests and skills. You know, I don't want to be doing the bookkeeping, I'll be honest. So I love that he's more inclined.
Yeah, but that's how Ruth and I...
Yeah, I do the bookkeeping.
Yeah, is that your part?
Yeah, it's the most boring thing ever.
I know. No, I can imagine. I'm glad I get to go out and meet the tenants and all those kinds of things. So, yeah. And then I'll be working with our portfolio manager going forward. So although we won't be doing the actual tenant check-ins, check-outs, referencing all those kinds of things myself, I will be looking after who's going to be taking that on for us.
Yeah, so you'll be overseeing them, which is really still a big undertaking to be responsible of someone.
Yeah.
You'll be responsible of your tenants.
Yeah.
So they'll have access to your Coho, and you both have access to Coho, and you just oversee.
Yeah, and I think we'll have, a weekly call to communicate between us, any issues, anything that we need to look at, anything we need to sort out, especially in the early stages. And then otherwise, it'll be more of like a responsive, waiting for something to come to me. Otherwise, outside of those weekly calls is how I see this panning out going forward. But we'll see. It's going to be one of those things where it's like the next level, the next stage for the company. We're just going to have to figure it out as we go a little bit. And I feel okay with those kinds of things. Don't know about you. I'm like, I don't need everything to be exact at the very beginning. I feel like let's have some good structure in place. Let's have really good communication. And I'm sure we can figure the rest out as we're going along.
Communication's really good. If that's not good, then that's a red flag. We've had a lot of experiences with management who have not responded at all to us.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, as long as communication is good, you can make like the systems all fall into place.
Yeah.
Really, nothing has to be perfect from the beginning, but as long as, communication is good from the beginning, I think that's the biggest takeaway, like the biggest lesson we've ever learned throughout our time with management and using management.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I approach a lot of things, though. I don't want things to be perfect. I want them to be just so, but I won't not do it if I don't think they will be from the outset. I know some people would rather hold back and wait until everything's perfect. I'm more of like, as long as I know, I've educated myself well, I've planned, I've prepared as much as I can. Let's just go with it, and we'll figure out the lumps and bumps in the road along the way, which there will inevitably be. We'll just figure those out while we're doing. But I think you can apply that to any part of being a business owner, can't you? I think you have to just accept that there are going to be challenges along the way and just figure them out.
I'd also say, like, becoming a mother, I would say I was quite controlling. And I would definitely say having a kid has taught me to just go with the flow a bit more, because you cannot control your children.
You are not in control anymore. That's the thing.
Sorry, it's going to happen. It's not going, are we going to leave the door today?
Yeah, not your choice.
I just wanted to ask as well about with your supported living, because there is a huge rise of supported living properties needed, especially in the UK. You feel like how are you going to be progressing with supported living with your own portfolio into the future? Like, what does that look like? What does it look like for you? And why supported living? Like, how did you get into it? I just think that would be really interesting to know.
Yeah, so I had read about it, in all of my research and listening to podcasts where people were using this as part of their strategy, or the whole of their strategy, basically. And then had a friend who was local to me and doing stuff with supported living. And I was really on the fence. I think it was always, the reason initially was always to have something that was a little bit more hands-off in terms of investment. But when I started researching it more, I realised that actually, there's vulnerable people needing somewhere to live all over, and there's a shortage of these houses. And with supported living, they will get some support, hence the name, from the charity or whoever it is that's owning that building, that's leasing that building, and they will be delivering that support to the tenants that are living there. And actually, it just felt like a really nice thing to do too. So there is a mixture for me within the portfolio, like I said, and I think that I will maintain that going forward. I think I would like to have more of both, professional and supported living. I think I would look at other care providers outside of who I'm already working with as well. Again, always diversifying slightly to kind of not put all of my eggs in one basket, just in case, and future-proofing the investments that I've got. But I think there's definitely a place for it. It definitely feels like a good thing to be doing. It's a win-win because it gives me less of a workload, I suppose, as well. And it's definitely going to play a big part going forward for us in our investments. We will continue to source for both professional HMOs and supported living HMOs.
So it sounds like you don't really favour one over the other. They're like on an equal.
Yeah, I think they are equal, really. Yeah. I think it's just great to be able to, sourcing can be the hardest part a lot of the time, can't it? Finding the right deal at the right price, And I think if you were only ever sourcing for one exact thing, I have quite a small investment area. So having the flexibility of sourcing two different kinds of buildings gives me options within the same, within that small investment area. I don't want to spread too far, too much to manage in that way, or for anybody else who's working with me, not to be driving here, there and everywhere. So I want to keep the investment area small. So if I can diversify what I'm sourcing and who it's for over time, I just think that gives me much more flexibility and will present more opportunity, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's some investors who they do invest everywhere, like all over the UK, abroad. Like, we've kept our investments quite close because we were self-managing in the beginning, coming back to it now. And I think it does make it a lot easier to be able to rely on the same tradespeople if you've got properties that are not so far. Like, I think it's like some people, If you want to travel 4 hours to get to one of your investments,
No,
not for us.
it's not for me. It's not for me either. I like that everything is in close proximity. If I need to go to all of the properties in the same day, I could easily. So that, it just
Perfect.
makes sense to me.
Yeah. And you know your patch.
Yeah.
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 That makes
Down
you
to like street
your
by street.
area.
Yeah. I know what streets I would like properties on, even if they're not available. I'm like, this is like A1 location. So even things like that, I think are just good to have, aren't they? There's no hesitation then when it comes to understanding your area. There's no research to be done. And I know straight away where I would want to be investing, what kind of properties I would want to be investing in. It kind of makes that process easier when looking for a new project.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think you'll ever go in the next 5 years? Would you ever think of looking further from HMOs into a different strategy? Or are you going to go, I'm going to stick to my HMOs but just diversify how you provide your...
Yeah. Well, I've used the phrase to Dan, that I want HMOs. I want to have just done them so well and so many times that they're almost boring before we move on to something else. Because I don't like the thought of trying lots of different things and not getting it right. I feel like we've got a really good understanding of what we're doing now, and we can turn them around fairly quickly. I can estimate very well, build costs and, time frames and everything like that. So I feel like there's probably an element of like a security in that. But while there's so much going on and the babies are so young, I feel like rather than trying to learn something new, and this is working really well for me, I'll just diversify within the strategy. But in the future, maybe I think it might be nice to have a freehold block of flats. Because there's that lower turnover of tenants potentially if people are there for multiple years at a time, and the idea that you could split titles, hold some, sell some, that kind of thing. I feel like that would be interesting in the future. Not right now, but yeah, maybe in the next 5 years when I've got a bit more headspace when school kicks in, maybe. Yeah, something that might be interesting.
Yeah, that's smart because it's also keeping it simple. You're not trying to do something that is over learning something really extravagant.
Yeah.
Having blocks of flats is a really and owning the whole building
and
letting them out on a long-term AST. That's smart, especially your freedom.
Yeah.
And more time back enjoying whatever you love to do with your kids.
Exactly.
And travel as well.
Yeah, it's probably part of the reason why that is appealing, because it would be, lower work on a day-to-day or, weekly basis, you would think. Then, yeah, I think that's part of the reason why that feels appealing.
Yeah, because we would say, and we've honestly said, we've done service accommodation and
that was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah,
we learned the way and we've closed that shop. So we're keeping it too.
Yeah.
For now, until maybe our kids are older.
Yeah, definitely. I think you do have to be mindful of that, don't you? It's that shiny penny thing, isn't it? Or could do this. Yeah.
We did it. We got the shiny penny.
Yeah.
Learned big lessons.
And then you wanted to give it back.
Instantly.
Yeah. Actually what happened. I wouldn't say never again though. I would just do it in a totally different way. You would have to genuinely, personally, we would have to be very passionate about the project and want to be involved. It's not something you can make hands off as easily as the other strategies. So just to wrap up, you are still offering one-to-one mentoring services.
Yeah.
As well as
I am, yeah. And I think it's something that I will be doing long term. Like I say, it's something that I can do from wherever I am as well. So I am still offering that. I've got some extra information on my Instagram page, on that kind of thing. You can click through to my website from there too if people wanted to know a little bit more about it, or they could send me a message as well. If we could set up an intro call if that's what people wanted to do and know a bit more about it. Yeah, send me a message.
Yeah, we'll put all of Laura's details in the show notes with her down.
You have to look at her Instagram page because her property is so pretty.
tea.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, is this serviced accommodation?
Yeah.
No, it's an HMO.
Yeah.
stunning.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really nice.
You're looking for a mentor who is obviously very clearly going to make sure you stay focused and not veer off the
Yeah.
path and create clearly very high quality products.
Yeah, it's a product. Yeah.
For others to live in, then Laura's your gal.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Well, enjoy your time in Bali.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for being on the episode.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It's been really nice to chat to you.
Bye, Laura.
Bye.